all of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number, or is 2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know, Zach.
It's a tough one. I
It's
know,
really hard.
and maybe comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a ghost, dude. Hello and welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. I'm your host, Zach. Joining me once again is Dan Platts of the Albany County Green Party. How you doing tonight, Dan?
I'm alive.
Yeah.
Keeping busy. It's always lots of busy work.
So tough news recently, huh?
Of various types, yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, for the last few months, I've been running for city council. I completed the petitioning. I generally followed the standing rule of gathering twice what you need. So I needed 52 signatures. I collected about 90. And this is in the hood. So collecting signatures is not too hard.
Not the easiest thing.
Too easy. But the hit rate was better than I expected, actually. I was sort of afraid that I'd only get like 2-3 signatures every outing. But there were good outings like where I'd get 5, 8, and then there was a particular day where we got 11. That was like the best day. But so sometimes it kind of declined a bit, and the last week was pretty bad. But that was because I was doing the most blighted parts of the ward, where it literally was just like maybe 3 hits and then in 1 signature.
Yeah, you probably weren't even talking to that many people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because there's just nobody around, or finding that, well, just the number of names I was hitting was much, much less.
Sure.
And then among that, it just lowers the proportion of everything. So that's a success in itself, going out
Absolutely.
and actually canvassing.
That's something to be proud of.
Talking about like introducing myself, but also leading off an elevator pitch regarding what do I want to promote: community ownership, co-ops, land trusts, community ownership of businesses, housing, through various means, and city ownership as well. So that's all the different types of socialism can be covered. But it is about building socialism. I don't start with that, but I mean the community ownership, and I got a lot of head nods, and I think it earned me some signatures, and that people hear that and like, okay, you actually have a thing you're for. Not that that's what they said, but I think that's the general vibe, considering that this is what hurts, is that the front runner or likely winner is an older Black conservative kind of guy who doesn't know anything. He was talking at our local neighborhood association meeting where I was going to talk as a candidate, but then I emailed literally days before and said, no, I can't run anymore. The campaign is wrapping up. But if I could at least get a minute or two, I'd appreciate it. Just to say what I was running about. I didn't really get that even though, but at least I could just say I wasn't candidate anymore. But anyway, well, I'm just listing the positives of the campaign.
For sure.
Training, getting out with people who had never canvassed before, building a little bit of experience and lessons learned for myself and my campaign manager, who had never done this before. It was purely on a lark. That's like, look, I'll only run in the first place if I have a manager, even if it's somebody who doesn't know yet what he's doing. He's learning on the fly. Better to run half a campaign to win than have nothing and feel really shitty for the whole year, which is kind of what I'm going to be at, especially come October. I'll probably feel better if James Davis, this other guy, wins. He's running a good campaign, and he lost last term, So he built a bit of a base himself already, which is sort of what I was kind of looking to do. Get that like 100 or so votes. That can then become double that next time, which is the amount you need to win. So I think he's doing good. In fact, he may even be just based on Windows signs, he might be doing even better. He actually had some events in the last 2 weeks, meet and greets, Q&As. I don't know if a lot of people showed up to them, but at least people who were supporting / helping him did, and that's sort of what my events were too, because this is a small ward, small amount of voters. It's poor, it's working class. The richest people are just sort of some petty bourgeois state workers or black black entrepreneurs type of people, and maybe some property managers along the way.
Sure.
Though I didn't get a full canvas of the whole neighborhood and all the businesses and whatever, but that was passed for the summer. But there's a lot of stuff that like could be done, but I want to do it in the context of running for office, not building the chapter is where I'm switching back to, which is kind of the original project starting back after last election season, back in November, December. Building up county chapter, which you see below me. As the chair, I am actually responsible for doing shit, and that was something I was putting aside for the campaign, since they weren't truly overlapping that much. The people helping the campaign were not people who are going to be like full-time green activists or active Greens. They were active in other orgs already or doing their own thing, but they wanted to help me and they wanted to help the socialist candidate. And I didn't and I held off on a lot of different activities until I knew I had ballot access, like pursuing the DSA endorsement, pursuing other types of endorsements, which basically endorsements really are just who do you have a relationship with. So endorsements really come from building a relationship first. But I also want to point that out to aspiring political organizers. Build relationships, those are the people that you actually go to for endorsements, which is why I sound a little cynical about, no, I'm not going to ask them. I'm not going to ask them. They're really no point because I don't have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
And cold calling, it's like asking someone you don't know for money, versus someone you do. And that included something I put aside was I made a call list of my friends and family from my phone, and I'm like, gonna ask them all for $50. I didn't start that until I knew I had ballot access. So anyway, let me get to the point. My petitions were nullified, so I don't have ballot access. This is a combination of not running. No Green in New York since the aughts has had to run as an independent candidate. So there's a lack of experience in that regard, of people who could tell me, make sure you do this, make sure there's an extra rule there. But there's also a matter of the rules change term to term, decade to decade. So that we were not aware of, because I could ask veteran Green campaigners to look at my work or to let me know if I could be missing something, and they really didn't know. There was some fine print. It's on the state website that there was a form I was missing, but you have to scroll down to find it. Right? You have to pass the petitions area, and it's at the very bottom of the petitions text. I was really focused, because what really trips up Green or third-party candidacies is the petitions. All the petitions were fine. Follow the rules. There was no errors found, or at least reported by BOE. It was a form I was missing, based on the fact that the petitions nominate me, but they're it's my manager nominating me essentially. It could be a party doing it. It's up to me. I have to officially accept it. I think there's obviously a debate that could be had about you should only have to fill a file if you're declining. Otherwise, by default you're nominated. But no, I have to 3 days after the petitions are turned in, file a form that's notarized and signed by me that I accept the nomination. Now, the clerk at the BOE, when I'm handing in the petitions, if they had a spine They would have said, make sure you send in the form by Friday. But they didn't. The commissioner, there's hypothetically two commissioners, a Democrat and a Republican. This is supposed to be balanced. This is supposed to create balance, at least within the duopoly. To have a commissioner that's a partisan for each side. But in reality, the commissioner is not biased just towards Democrats. They're biased towards particular Democrats, favored Democrats. And the clerk, so I go in person with the form in hand. I just did it just for the sake of it, really. I knew they weren't going to accept it. Deadline was like, this is a week after, maybe 2 weeks even, after the deadline. No, I guess a week and a half. Where I get the letter telling me my petitions are just nulled, which is just saying that a 2 months of work is just down the toilet. That just didn't matter.
That's just so awful.
We don't care that you did all the work. You didn't accept the nomination, so
you didn't tick one box. So
yeah, you didn't tick one.
You're
box.
out.
So the clerk says, with a look on their face that says, "We know this is unfair, but it's up to the commissioner's discretion of whether to notify." Because I basically asked, like,
that just
can it be a rule that once I'm nominated, assuming that, like, let's say I wasn't there to drop off the petitions, it was someone doing it on my behalf, shouldn't I be notified?
Right?
Shouldn't I be notified with next day mail that I'm nominated and I have now 2 days to accept?
Well, what a bullshit hurdle anyway.
It's up to the commissioner's discretion to notify preferred candidates, and they use the phrase, her own love, her good, like the good of her own heart.
That's just such a ridiculous hurdle to make you jump through. Anyway, what's the point of that? What are there people that are just spending all that time getting petitions for people that don't actually want to run?
Well,
and they're just going to waste
the
everyone's
point
time.
It prevented me from being on the ballot. That's
Exactly. And that just seems like naked corruption and suppression of.
It's not corruption because it's just the rules. The rules
I guess.
The rules.
I guess
they're just following the rules.
Technically, it's not, but shit.
Because I was kind of explaining before we started stream, they cannot follow the rules, but then claim later, like, well, now we're going to be in compliance. You know, they can bend it before, but now we're not. Like, they can claim, we're not bending it for you because we did before, but we were in the wrong. And now, so it's basically like any kind of abusive gaslighting relationship.
Right.
Like, we're not actually bending the rules. That's prove it. Prove we were bending the rules. You don't have a record. You couldn't have had a record. You're not allowed to videotape us in the office here.
Yeah.
Cameras have to be off. It's on the door. So if you follow the rules, and so this can lead us into a discussion about protesting right now, and how we're really dealing with ICE. How are we defending ourselves from ICE? I think it really is a kind of run and hide situation as far as immigrant populations are concerned. I think it's the only thing they can do. They have to shelter in place, basically. So I think it shouldn't be like ICE or out. I think like the support needs to be, we're going to bring immigrant families on a list with the immigrant center, like food and support, so ICE won't grab them at some point. Because even in Albany, we're a sanctuary city. Now, our police department, I do not believe are helping them, but that's the policy is that we don't help ICE. A real policy would be our police stop ICE. They block them.
Right.
But that is a situation that's not really existing because ICE are just kind of going out and to a particular place. And so the police, in order to block them, would also basically like someone there on scene calls 911, the police show up well before ICE leaves and blocks them. But of course, that would create a whole different kind of clusterfuck. But again, there's so many different tangents about like what ifs and how to's. But it is very frustrating. What is the real plan here? And even when it comes to the organized, I guess there's enough kind of organizing people who believe they're doing so, or they only do so during crisis situations like this, or some kind of ongoing situation. But then they also seem powerless at the same time. Like they're not actually able to do anything, or they're not broadcasting it.
Yeah.
Probably for good reason.
Hmm.
That's where you also get caught between like broadcasting what you're doing so that people know what you're doing, and broadcasting where ICE is, and doing any kind of OPSEC whatsoever.
Right.
So there's a lot of protest discourse,
Mhm.
and I'm just having this thought from my head, like, didn't we all do this 5 years ago?
Yeah.
This whole like, don't riot, it only helps the fascists.
Oh, I've been, yeah, pretty over that messaging from the get go.
Don't get Trump wants like they yes, it is clear, or if not obvious, because Trump is a show president. He just plays a fascist, really. So a fascist needs a Reichstag, a play version of the Reichstag fire, and instigating things by sending ICE out, literally harming people, so that you get any kind of reaction, regardless of what it is. Apparently, libs, well, the people who only say you're helping Trump, I don't know what they're really proposing. That's the thing. Sorry.
Voting.
So the meme that I have in mind is a very short, like, sweet meme where it's like, Trump wants the left to be his enemy. Don't give him that. Don't be his enemy. I'm like, so what do you want us to do?
Yeah. Right.
Now,
just wait another.
Yeah. Now I can retort like, sure, Trump isn't my enemy. Capitalism's my enemy.
Uh-huh.
But none of the people talking this way, they're not anti-capitalist, or they're not socialists anyway.
Right.
I don't know what they want.
I mean,
I think it's just a big stay calm.
Right.
Stay calm and carry on.
Well, I mean, it's premised on accepting the right-wing framing in the first place, that no amount of property damage or violence is ever justified if it's on the side of the protesters. Let alone the countless videos now that are out of LAPD instigating violent confrontations of the most recent protests.
And it's also like, look,
so,
we don't want to create media that reinforces the worldview of the Fox News watchers.
Right.
Like, the Fox News watchers are already brainwashed.
Yeah. They're gonna complain no matter what.
From 15 years ago, like, they already have their views solidified. And the only thing that can drag them out is not counter media.
Yeah.
It's got to be something physical. It's got to be in their hood. It's got to be like people they know talking to them. It's not going to be counter media. This isn't a meme war. Stop thinking in terms of meme war or media war or info war even, because that's the right's already won the info war, really. Or it's not info war at all. That's just it's downstream from real politics. So we need to know how to do real politics, and that means organizing. So anyway, let's diverge. So it sounds like me ranting. What did you do? We both went to No Kings Saturday.
Indeed.
How was your No Kings experience?
I mean, it was a good time.
What were you doing?
I took some video of it. I don't know how easy that's going to be to watch. It's on Facebook and Instagram. But anyway, I was in St. Paul. We got about upwards of 30,000 people out. So a pretty sizable protest. We filled up the entire Capitol grounds. This was also right after that shooting happened of the state senators in Minnesota.
That was in the Capitol?
What's that?
That was in the Capitol, though?
The shooting? No, that was in their homes. That's
right. It was in their home. It was a home invasion.
This guy had a hit list. Right, is still trying to spin it as somehow he's a leftist because he was appointed to a bipartisan commerce or business board by Tim Walz. Let alone his roommate has been saying, no, he's been a Republican his whole life. We're all Republicans. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well, he certainly enacted a sort of fantasy, but I'm thinking about what do I say to this is like, if this was 10 years ago, I'd probably be scoffing. I don't know, maybe I've always had scoffing at there's not enough people doing violent things. for violent things to matter, or that like what would it take for me to participate in some organized civil disobedience? Well, it's all a numbers game to me.
Yeah.
So I you know what? It's like I want to do something really drastic and militant, but I will not do it unless I'm one of 100.
Sure. Oh yeah. There's no reason
So,
to
and right now,
be adventurous about that.
not no names or other orgs names, but just the people that I know who can be more militant. Well, actually, the local Socialist Rifle Association, they're very much geared towards just the defensive side. They are not doing any organizing themselves to do any militant action. It's only to be the civil defense against such the militancy of the right.
Yeah.
How effective they can be, I'm not quite sure.
Hard to say.
I only saw, I think, one SRA member at No Kings.
Yeah.
At least one of
I
them.
don't think I saw any. I did see CPUSA, a few people from there. And
Well,
I
they're
think,
libs, so of course
the
they're
PSL.
friendly.
Yeah, are they still affiliated? I don't think they're still affiliated with Caleb Maupin, are they? I'm not really sure.
No. Those on the orgs you're talking about.
CPUSA? I thought that was the one that Caleb Maupin was part of.
No.
Okay.
CPUSA are the libs.
Okay.
They're so revisionist they went like horseshoe in their libs.
Gotcha.
That's why anyone who joins them unjoins them within a year.
I see.
Within a year.
But I saw one guy.
Moffin's outfit was called they gave themselves a think tank name, the Center for Political Innovation.
That's true, but I thought he was at one point affiliated with one of the.
Well, there's the American Communist Party.
No, that was probably the one.
That's the infrared.
Oh God, yeah.
Bros, the bros.
But yeah, there was a significant group from the PSL, so that was nice to see. Like almost all of the speakers canceled. Tim Walz was going to speak; he canceled because of the shooting. Keith Ellison are
cowards, then, aren't they?
That's what I'm thinking. And
the shooting was a home invasion. You're not getting shot there.
No. I mean, the guy was still at large, though.
So there's actual security. You'll have actual security.
You would think so. But the guy was still at large. And so, like, the State Highway Patrol told everyone to not go to the protest.
That'd be pretty bold to follow up an assassination.
Well, sure.
Now I'm going to go to a crowded space.
I mean, he had a bunch of homemade No Kings flyers. They're not even really flyers. He just markered out the words No Kings on them. I have no idea why. That's not really been revealed yet. Maybe he just was assuming he'd be caught, and he knew that there was enough dumbass Republicans who would just be like, well, that's enough to connect him to the left. I don't really know. It was bizarre.
Oh, you're referring, so he had No Kings flyers on him?
It was like he had markered out the words No Kings in all caps and then photocopied it like 50 times. And that was found in this pretend police cruiser that he was using to impersonate the police and gain the trust of the people who he shot.
Well, I guess he's crafty and good at confusion. You just, maybe I should have some right-wing thing on me at all times.
Right, just in case you get caught and you need to have them live. But that's kind of beside the point anyway. So so Keith Ellison, our Attorney General, did speak. Is fine. One of the speakers thanked the police on duty for keeping us safe and stuff. Not too happy about that one. But
it was a permitted rally, correct?
Yes, it was. They had
a permitted protest.
They had like marshals, and they were starting all the cheers and everything, and got people around. It was a pretty coordinated event. Some of the speakers were all right. They had local poet Guante, who was pretty good, but not too many like actual radical messages or anything. Mostly just we hate Trump, and that's fine.
It was up to you and your comrades to go there with a radical message.
And the people I brought, that was their first time out to a protest, so that was nice to
It has to be safe, I guess, if it's going to be your first time.
Yeah.
Interestingly, my big protest actually wasn't well permitted or safe.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that kind of prepped me to not be tepid about it later, once I wasn't a teen anymore. Seeing police horsemen basically like be in our way, and police not really like trying to control a large crowd but not being able to. I guess seeing that in person gave me the confidence to like, oh, you shouldn't have to follow the goddamn rules if you're protesting. Now, a political rally isn't really a protest. You're usually there for something.
Yeah.
That's where people, libs, or even rad libs, get really confused about what protest is even for. And to
Yeah, that's
me,
fair.
I'm sort of an all or nothing thing, the revolutionary in me, where it's like, look, we shouldn't protest unless our intention is to change the government.
Sure.
And the only time our country's really changed governments is the Civil War. Or, I mean, you could say the American Revolution was a change of government.
Yeah.
And I think you have to stretch what I'm talking about to say like, well, Roosevelt, FDR was a change in government. Or, we have a change in government when the economic mode of production shifts. Whether it be in the 20s or the 70s. When we had, realignments or something like that. But
Sure.
I don't really want to count that as a change in government. I think
No,
one of
really.
the strengths of the American system is that we can have changes in policy and realignments without changes in government.
Right.
And this is what everyone's sort of waiting on or expecting, that our American system can continue as it has for 200 years, or 150, I guess, where we'll have a change in government, or rather, we don't need a change in government, we just need a change in policy. So now we're flipping what party has the presidency every term now. I think this is going to continue until the big rupture occurs.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, it didn't. Yeah, it never really. I mean, it's never really happened. We had a burst of one-term presidents or something like that before the Civil War, but that was sort of a mix of presidents dying early, getting assassinated.
Yeah.
Um,
Things were not quite as stable back then.
Buchanan, I think, did he last 2 terms, or was
He was, I think he was the first one who did the 2 non-consecutive terms, if I recall right.
No, you're thinking of
Or was that Garfield?
Garfield, yeah.
Yeah. Right around that same time, though.
But that counts as more stability, not instability, though, doesn't?
Yeah.
I mean, well, I don't know, actually. Well, Garfield wasn't like a Trump figure or anything like that, but if anything, he kind of represented how machine-like American politics were.
Yeah.
That it wasn't very democratic.
No, not a lot of actual democracy happening during Reconstruction.
And so it is
Gilded
again.
Age, yeah.
The less democratic our system, the more we're just going to kind of flip between very similar presidencies. The flip flop is that we go between a term of harm reduction, where there is a feeling of stability, at least among our liberal institutions, and having a Republican where the liberal institutions have to adapt, go into a not quite a panic, but just oh shit, we can't do what we want. We have to adjust and not completely, or it's how can we change as little as possible,
right,
but while complying with what the Fed is saying we have to do.
And then they do a rightward shift to get back in power, the Democrats, and
something,
tack to the right and concede a bunch. So anyway,
Well, let me tell you what I did.
Yeah.
So following Howie Hawkins' advice, he was putting out an email through our shared listserv that, if you just go, because this is something me and my other radicals around me have not so much argued but discussed, because we've had a number of indivisible 50-50 Dem organized, rallies, anti-Trump rallies. We've had them every other month. There's one in, I guess, a little bit after January 20th. There was another one in March,
Sure.
and then there's another one, another March, another April, and then there was this one in June. So this is actually like the fourth one we've had in my area, or maybe third. But the interesting thing is, unlike having a big rally at your capital, which I think, or main city, or just having it as like a kind of big city march, it doesn't go that far, but actually because of the size of it, kind of seems like it's going quite far, maybe like a whole mile. That seemed to be Seattle's. Or one park to another.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, we've had ours by ours I mean like indivisible rallies at the Capitol, but the second time, despite the weather being better, the turnout was worse, and so I think they adjusted. And by the way, the one, well, actually I went to both, but at least the second one I was able to, not like personally, but like I was part of the discussion to say, let's at least show up and look more radical than everyone else.
Yeah.
But they weren't really
for that.
engage anybody. Just show up and say, hey, there are socialists around here.
Yeah, right.
And I don't even know if we had a banner, but I know I was standing around with my socialist comrades, just sort of talking with each other really. And I was kind of bored because it's like we're on the corner of the park and we're like not engaging anyone except people we know, which was okay for me as long as like family members were passing by and I could chat with them briefly. But then, then I'm sort of like, well, you know what, the crowd is manageable. I could actually walk around the perimeter and flyer people. But I was already, if not petitioning, but campaigning. So I was sort of like, not in a mood to talk to more strangers, especially strangers that weren't like even in Albany or from Albany.
Sure.
But with the campaign over, it's like, okay, now I'm back to just general Green Party organizing. And Howie's thing is, don't just go to the protest. If you just go and do not and stand around, you are in fact doing nothing. You're just there to be part of a crowd, to be seen, or whatever. And that's usually the caveat people give. Hey, let's go there and at least be seen as radicals, as somebody who's, wearing, a certain kind of t-shirt.
Sure.
But that's performative bullshit. And so Howie suggests if you go with a clipboard, you're organizing.
Okay.
And I'm like, I take that to heart. So I'm like, you know what? He's fucking right. I'm tired of this. Even me, myself, hemming and hawing about like, do I want to go and waste my time and just, I'm not there to listen to libs. I'm done protesting. I was on the fence back in 2013, 14. I didn't read the full book, but I listened to Michael White talking about his book, End of Protest. And I'm like, well, I guess I agree with half of what he's saying. I don't really agree with all of it, but he's right about like you either adjust or adapt you have to change what you do to protest. You do not protest the same way twice. But you have, libs and a lot of other people, rad libs, who want to protest the same way they did in the 60s. And they want to protest the same way we did 15 years ago. I'm like, no. Should be the way we do things differently. If we're going to protest differently, it's that when we go out, we're going out to sign people up for something.
For sure.
To organize. So, now, primarily, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but what I did do was I brought everything with me, at least in 2 bags, to like a mobile tabling, like everything that I might have on like a condensed version of a tabling setup in 1 bag. And I had a banner, a Green Party banner, and like some noisemakers on the other. So at least like if I am just standing around with folks, that I at least have something in my hands. A wood block, something to make noise with. So it isn't just me losing my voice. Because I learned that early on. It's like you should always bring something to make noise with. Pot and pan, we don't do that in America. So I had options. So I also had a clipboard with just a sign-in sheet. just so I can get people's contact info. And I brought enough lit with me, particularly lit I did want to get rid of anyway, because it's old and a bit outdated, but at least has like the basic platform of the greens, and the main state site is on there, so it's not all bad. And my plan was, and sorry, I got ahead of myself. So because the second rally in March or April, whenever it was, had lower turnout, they must have adjusted, the Indivisible folks. And they're like, and it's also something that's been more recent. All the other, the Palestinian Rights Committee has been doing this, having their rallies at one of our malls. But not quite the mall, but rather at an intersection where there's basically the highest traffic volume in the area. It's where some highways meet, and it's where like two long commercial stroads meet. And it's also one of the malls of the areas there. So it's a good place to do a sign and flag waving, stand out, you know. It's where you get the most eyeballs, I guess. Not that I don't fucking care about that. I hate doing those. I'll show up whenever I go to a protest the last 15, at least mostly 10 years, but let's say even beyond that. I show up to support other people being there. I'm not going there myself. I'm past the anger of just being able to have to vent. I'm past like thinking, oh, let's get out there to just show people that we care. Like, no, that's not doing anything. That's performative. But I've already said that. So Indivisible did the same thing. It was only actually on the way there that I think, oh, that's why they're doing it here. There isn't enough parking around New York Capitol. There isn't enough parking. I can assume a lot of people came the first day, but they had to walk so far from wherever they found parking that they didn't come the second time. And the first time it was raining. So let's do it in an area that has the most parking. Because trust me, there is enough parking along it's Wolf Road.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and it's also the area where the airport is. So it's like it's the main endless like edge city.
Sure.
It's where the Cheesecake Factory is. It's where the all the chain restaurants you can imagine. It's where the Hobby Lobby is. So anyway, so the game plan for Indivisible is to have a rally that just lines Wolf Road. Rather, first along the mall. So 1,000 people could like string out along the length of the mall. It's not the picture of the mall. It's a more of a long rectangle.
Sure.
Not the big clusterfuck with anchor stores placed on the edges. This is more like anchor stores, long rectangle. So it's actually kind of a good layout. It means that like the parking doesn't extend too far away, so it's not like a big ocean, but it's a lot of parking there, and it's usually half empty. But it's not by far not a dying mall. So this time all the lots were filled. About 6,000 showed up.
Nice.
And they filled, and we got lined up along both sides of the stroke. And of course, the stroke itself is packed with cars. It's a Saturday, and it's June. So this made it actually much more convenient for me to canvass because everyone's already in a line. So all I have to do is walk along the sidewalk and canvass.
Yeah.
Which in my case was throwing out my voice, just shouting, Green Party, I just settled on 3 lines. Green Party, build our own power, power the Green Party, outside corporate money, build politics outside corporate money, just variations of that. And anyone who turns their head a little longer than a glance, I may engage further by going up to them and saying, build party with the Green Party. And so I moved a stack that big.
Nice.
And I signed up 2 people. One who I kind of already knew, but was not an active Green, but certainly gets all our emails one way or the other. So I was more just like, let's just make sure it's like through our list or not. Give me your contact anyway. And another who I never met before, and she identified as a green, but wasn't active in anything, but was interested in election and ballot reform. Giving me the question of why aren't the Greens pushing for ranked choice ballots? Should we be doing that? I'm like, oh, we absolutely would if we had enough of the committee. So, but in the meantime, besides giving her the rigmarole of like my local organizing strategy, I could also point her towards Unite New York, which is the group of a coalition for election reform. And they're good because their platform includes everything. So they don't leave anything out, which is what I'm always wary about. Like, you want ranked choice, but do you want proportional representation?
Mhm.
The thing that would really help third parties. Or do you only want reforms, but that would only serve maybe everything being nonpartisan? And there's a general argument that should be made or had a debate about the best type of election reform. But we're not even having those debates because there isn't enough organizing on those questions. Once there's enough a mass for election reform, then we argue about what we really want to push for. But I think it's also we'll be pragmatic, and it's whatever looks like can be thought, like what we can get. So I wasn't carrying the clipboard, but I had it on me so I could pull it out if I engaged someone long enough. And I remembered to ask for their contact or if they were interested. Otherwise, I was just glad to move lit. And I mean, it's the first time I'd really done that in a big lib crowd. So the hit rate wasn't great, of course. I knew that a lot of people, anyone with gray hair, was like, they were not giving me the time of day. But anyone who was looked under 50 or wearing kind of punk clothes or had somewhat more radical sign or affectation on them, I engaged. And yeah, anyone queer looking. There was actually someone handing out guillotine buttons.
Uh-huh.
I forgot. I was so enthralled with what I was doing, or focused.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask, or it was mostly people passing by, so I wasn't able to stop it. Hey, who's giving out those buttons? But I can relate that there were other people canvassing. Some DSA comrades were there. Two with a petition. I forget which one it was. I didn't ask them actually. I was just passing by. But the other, who was a DSA member, but she was there as the local coordinator for New York Health, which is a single payer healthcare. And I asked them how they were doing, or at least the what was her name? It was a simple name. But I asked her how she was doing, but they and I think the other DSA petitioners weren't doing that well. Like, they weren't getting a lot of engagement.
Mm.
And of course, that's sort of that's one of those, on the one hand, I was able to canvass and get some good engagement, and I was able to move lit. People were interested in taking it. I wouldn't give it to someone who wasn't I wasn't pushing it or anything.
Yeah.
People who were in fact curious. Because that's all most people were, and that's fine with me. And then it'll be the 5 people that I actually fully talk to. And this is out of 1,000 or 2 people, but not that I was counting. So obviously it's there's 2 kinds of actions. There's the action of local community people where everyone you talk to will be a hit. They'll want to engage, they'll want to know what you're doing, and they may even argue with you, but in a good way. Versus the type of huge event where, well, that's the thing. Most people, most events where I'm anxious about canvassing, they're usually the type of events that are concerts or markets or festivals. It's people are there to shop and be consumers. They're not really there to politically engage, or they're definitely not they're not politically engaging themselves. They don't even want to think about it. It's the hit rate will be abysmal. At least that's yeah. Now this is the case. Everyone there is there to be politically activated, but the hit rate's still going to be not great, but it won't be. I didn't feel like it was abysmal though. There was only maybe like a 5 minute span where I think it was dry, but then it would pick up again.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah. So I saw a meme where that made me pretty upset today.
Yeah,
And
what's that?
it was a well, you have memes. I guess it's mostly Liv sharing them, but it's like a little meme, like a text wall explaining how to be safe at one of these protests. That you should immediately sit down.
Oh, I've seen those. Yeah.
And I didn't read it all before because the first time I saw it, I just groaned and moved on. I'm like, I'm not going to torture myself reading all this shitlib stuff. But for some reason, I guess I read all of it this time, or most of it. I think I stopped halfway down. But I stopped when I got to the part where it said, if you sit down and there are others that don't, those will be the paid thugs meant to drag the movement down.
Infiltrators.
I'm like, oh, fucking God.
It's like, maybe they just don't want to be trampled by the horses. Who knows?
Maybe yeah. It's sort of like, is the person writing this? Maybe it's AI.
You know what? You never know these days. That's true. It could be an AI guide.
Don't trust a meme unless an org is posting it.
For sure.
If individuals are, it's like, look, man, you don't protest actively. Shut up. Don't share these. You're not doing active, like you're not preparing to do civil disobedience. You're not an org that's organizing that. There are like groups and campaigns that will do civil disobedience like in the New York Capitol building, which is like sit downs and stuff. But this is like within a context of like the state troopers are the ones you're dealing with. It's very common. They'll basically arrest you and process you, and you'll be out in a few hours. They basically just have to shepherd you to like the state trooper's office in the concourse, a few blocks away, distance wise. Process you, and then you're released like by the end of the day. That's not always the case, I guess, but it's usually the case because the people doing those actions in the Capitol, they're older, they're experienced. It's kind of, a job. To everyone in LA and other kind of riot porn streams, ssonz streams I've been watching.
Mm-hmm.
Most people do not know what they're doing. There's a lot of good mutual aid people out there who are helping and stuff, but nothing's organized whatsoever. Now, counterpoint, there's a YouTube channel that came up on my algorithm because I was watching protest live streams, as I have in the past too. It's called Squid Tips. So this is like a black bloc anarchist guy from Seattle.
Okay.
And these are good videos because he's sort of like showing off how fun and interesting and he knows knows what's up, he knows what he's doing. And his point is that it's not a matter of, well, here's the thing. When I say being organized, this can also just mean that there's an organization that people go to or goes to people and educates them. So if everyone has enough education, then we're all equals as far as knowing what to do and how to do it. And then we can simply divvy up tasks on the spot. It can be very organic and grassroots and horizontalist and anarchistic. If everyone's on the same page, everyone has like similar skill sets or education about how to be safe when you're marching, how to take the street, how to stay in the street. Like when you're confronted with a police line, you just turn back and you go a different way. Or when you protest in an area and the police push you out of it, then you simply move to a new area. But you do it together as a mass. And what I'm seeing via ssonz live streams, at least in LA and other cities where there are more robust protests, but maybe in particular LA, because LA does not seem to have the experienced people like Seattle and New York and Portland and Minneapolis.
Which is strange. You'd think there'd be like a big punk scene there that would have some veterans who've done this sort of thing before.
But I think those are the people distributing mutual aid or whatever. But,
Yeah, you're
but
probably
they're
right.
not doing teach-ins or whatever. But maybe there's no time for them. But I mean, if there's lessons from Occupy, it's that there should be like some base camp, not where the police lines are, but you have some base camp where people can go and do some teach-ins, so that and and then you distribute your gas masks and stuff there, and maybe the police will raid back. But then you keep moving regardless. But that's where it becomes a puzzle and a challenge where being organized means knowing where to go in a way that's just like that information can be spread or you get informed in a way that is within security boundaries so that the police don't know or authorities don't know. Right now, it's either you communicate in a way that the police know exactly what you're doing, where you're going to fall back to, what kind of things you're bringing, or you don't plan or say anything, and everyone kind of comes and is winging it. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing everybody winging it as a reaction or as like a tactic, a strategy of we're going to be like water, we're all going to wing it, so the police will have no idea how to handle us. Well, guess what? They know exactly how to fucking handle a crowd that's just winging it. They push them out, and then the crowd, in fact, is dispersed. And then it doesn't reformulate, it doesn't reconstitute somewhere else.
Right.
That's not what I'm seeing from the live streams. I'm seeing people get pushed out of spaces because it's the first time they're protesting, and they're just like, well, what do I do now? And there's no fucking leader, there's no fucking org or anyone for flag, no one doing a mic check to even suggest, hey, there's enough of us, there's 50 of us here, we're not a huge crowd, but we're 50, let's march somewhere else. But it's like, well, no, the target is here. The target is the feds. The target is City Hall. And the police have basically put a 4-block quarantine, like perimeter around it. And I guess because it takes 3 hours for the police to push them a big crowd like that out of the area to disperse with the rubber bullets and the tear gas and all the other less than lethals. It takes 3 hours. That's the 3 hours that people are willing to commit to going to a protest. And I think I've been in that position myself. You get tired and you don't have anyone else to tag in.
Sure.
Because there was no second plan. There was no plan B. Now, at the best of Occupy, there were plans made where, okay, we're a big crowd, but we're going to split up into 10 sections and we're going to hit 10 areas. And then we're going to meet back here. And the police will not be able to do a thing about restraining us. Because, will we meet back here? Well, we can actually use our phones and communicate. We can have some team leaders and go like, well, they're swarming the park now. It's the fallback. So let's go to the other part. That requires coordination. That requires organization. And I am very, I'm not going to do some serious protesting until that's in place. And what would that take? I think an organization, a party that has like an action committee that's like big enough that 10 people, where each of those 10 people becomes a section leader, and they have like code names or just fun names. I'm just giving a hypothetical of how it would work. But like in Occupy, it sort of worked like that. And it was also done in person, so you could go and wing it, but you're winging it within the structure of the big GA that we had. It was actually a fishbowl, so it was more of a constrained conversation between like a few dozen people about the plans of the day. But there was also a general structure of like what we could be doing. And it was it the university? I think it was the anniversary of Occupy. Yeah, 1 year anniversary. That was a great day because there was no way we were getting kettled. There were some close calls with some cops, but not really. That's where I'm like, okay, I'll just stay on the sidewalk for now. We weren't able to really block any roads. But we could march in the streets, of course, and the police can just follow us. But that was 15 years ago, or about close to that. It's been 5 years since the 2020 unrest,
Mhm.
and I guess I was going over in my head whether like if I choose to be cynical and like doing all of that, and that didn't change a goddamn thing. I think on the whole,
Yeah.
police budgets increased. There wasn't really a lot of reform anywhere.
Yeah, they added police. They
In my
didn't
city,
defund, except for
yeah,
like one city, who I think
in my
maybe already
city,
was going to.
in my city, it's definitely not defunded, and all the mayoral candidates are like arguing about how they're not for defunding and how ridiculous that idea is. But what it did infuse in the conversation that from now on, or at least in this race, all the black Democratic candidates will be. It's accepted that within another term or two, we will have a conglomerated Department of Public Safety that the police are within, and that the police will be doing what's it called? The 911 calls will be dual, like they will be more specific about what the crisis is, and so the people sent out to it, the call, will be not just the cops,
Like social workers instead.
not just social workers, but it's more about having like a crisis person, a mental health crisis pro,
Sure.
with going out with the cops, depending on what the call is.
Okay. So like embedded then.
Yeah, embedded, or it's like a dual. It's like what's
Dual
the
role.
name for when you send the police, the fire department, and EMS, and that whenever the fire department go out, and EMS will go out with them. I
Yeah,
forget what it's
I'm
called.
not sure the exact name
But
of
it's
it.
like it's a I have it written down in my like mayoral candidate notes. But it's like it's a model. It's like a ride along model kind of thing, or you have different teams that are both sent out based on the crisis. Like 911 call, it's a fire, possible injuries, fire and EMS. Oh, it's a domestic violence and someone's unbalanced or drunk. Okay, we'll send cops and mental health crisis person. So it will be less strain on the cops themselves because it will not. We won't be treating every emergency call like a nail that needs a hammer. So in a way, maybe long term, this will mean defunding or shifting police funding to. It will no longer just be the police; it will be the Department of Public Safety, and
Yeah.
that less of what that department is, or it's a proportion that is policing, but it isn't just policing.
Yep.
That is success. That means
Uh-huh.
what defunding meant. But it's funny that like defunding is brought up, and people are like, I'm not for defunding. I'm for this other thing, which just happened to be demands that were
Has to be.
meant defunding.
Yeah.
Nobody actually mentioned that funding for the police had increased.
Yeah. Right.
But see, the thing is, what keeps being mentioned is that our police department is like 30 officers short. So there's this huge deficit of officers. And somehow crime is still going down.
Amazing that.
So the conversation actually isn't about how are you going to drop crime rates, because that's already kind of happening. It's just very slow. But how do you fight the perception that crime is high, that Albany is dangerous? But that's
that is a tougher battle.
That's an ever increasing amount of down and out people.
Yep.
That live in Albany, and poverty. That's what people are like complaining about. There's too many poor people in Albany. I don't want to go to Albany. I'll see poor people, and they'll even interact with me.
They might ask for money or say something weird.
Which is the usual interaction.
Yeah.
In fact, that just happened to me on my way home. Guy who just got out of
Glad you
rehab.
made it back safely. Jeez.
Huh?
I'm
Yeah,
glad you made it back safely after being accosted. by a panhandler.
Well, I think what I'm kind of I don't know how skittish I'm going to be about this, but usually a lot of down and outs hang out in front of the library. And I think the library is pushing them away from the front. So some of them are hanging out in the back, which happens to be where my block is. So for the last 2 days, there have been 2 guys with full carts, shopping carts, which isn't like, and they're hanging out basically along my block, which I'm more curious, like, what are they posting up here for? Like, this is not a good spot for them. They're way exposed. 2 days in a row, though. If they're here again tomorrow, I'm actually gonna ask them, like, hey, why are you guys posted up here? This is an exposed top of a ridge spot. Like, it hasn't been that windy or rainy, but like it was this morning. I'm like, is this really a good place for you guys to store your carts? I guess it isn't compared to the front of the buildings, which would be the main strip. That's a main street. And this is like a back side street kind of place. But there's a lot of car traffic along here too. It's not exactly, there's no privacy with that. But I guess it's relative to the lack of privacy like in front of the library. And if they are getting pushed around, but people don't store their carts in front of the library. So that's sort of why I didn't question it before. But the guy who busted me today sort of related that like he was pushed out of the library for not actively soliciting people, but like somebody offered him money if they met him like in the back. And by mentioning that, the library clerks, which I related to him, like they kind of have to take a hard line on this about like no soliciting in the library. No, like even if you're just like you're not actively doing it yourself, like just having these interactions in the library is a bad precedent, and nobody needs it there, and nobody wants it there. It's like in front of the library, whatever, but it's also a matter of like anyone going into the library from the front shouldn't have to like do a gauntlet of like literally like it's usually just like a clique of down and out people hanging out. But hanging out is not the same as soliciting everybody passing by. That's not what we have. That's never happened to me going to the library. But the main branch library is like a hangout spot for down and out because, well, libraries are the essential resource. And the drop-in centers are not always that helpful. And it's sort of sad that like I got at the neighborhood association this huge presentation from a now newly organized coalition where all the different housing services are in fact coordinated a little bit. But like, how good is it going when the level of down and out people is like, if not increasing, but like it at least feels like it's intensifying. And it's weird because like they do a count like in the winter and it's like 800 people. But I guess that is sort of what it is. It just seems like it's distributed enough where it's 5 here, 5 here, 2 there. And it's just like they're everywhere.
That's a significant amount. How much population is Albany?
Close to 100,000.
Oh, okay.
But it's these are regional kind of people.
Sure.
It's a lot of the down and outs are like people passing through. I mean,
I see.
A lot of the busking, there's 2 kinds of busting, and it's hard to know like how much like you believe them because it's like it's a common ask where like, no, I just need $5 so I can take like a bus to get like a county away. Or at least the next leg towards like where I could stay. Or in this case, it was a guy saying he has family like in Saratoga County, so he needs a bus to Saratoga. And then he needs like the $4 for the bus fare. And I'm like, well, I usually don't want to give the full 5, but this guy was sociable enough that I was like, there's 2 ways of the conversation always contains a a little rant about how unfriendly everybody is to the down and out. And sort of the desperation of like, I don't really want to accept less than what I actually need, because I've been asking for what I need all day and I haven't been getting it. So it's like, I say, I'll give you the 2 singles I got, but he's like, but you have the 5. So give me, I really want to take the 5. I really need the $4. $4 will actually get me where I'm going. Now, hypothetically, if not cynically, the 5 is what he needs to get the next fix.
Sure.
Or whatever. Or anything, really. You can't even buy a sandwich for less than 8. So,
right.
Or lunch is like 10.
Yeah.
So I can understand why $2 is like not doing it for anything. But it gets you part the way there. It's like it gets you part to it. Like, but again, if you're only getting a few bucks an hour, but begging for it, then it's not very. You're not efficient, right? It's not efficient.
That reminds me of the John Stossel years ago did an experiment where he pretended to be homeless for like a day, and then he
There's some streamers that have done that.
Yeah, did the average intake that he got per hour, and he's like, "Well, this is more than minimum wage. Well, these people are living like kings out here." It was one day. It was a clear day.
He didn't sleep outside, did he?
No, not at all. He sat on the sidewalk and collected.
There was a streamer who was in London, and he actually like he slept outside and realized just how like vulnerable he was. Like, someone could take my shoes and I'd be screwed.
Someone could fucking stab you. Like, you're totally exposed.
But losing your shoes, it happens very regularly, actually.
Yeah, and that's pretty bad.
He found like, and it was sort of fake, where it's like he found an AirPod that he could like resell.
Sure.
But it was also like, well, this isn't going to be enough to do anything. But what he did was, I think he used the AirPod revenue to buy like the box of like snacks and then sell those on the street. Because I think the guy was like an entrepreneur guy, so like he thought in those terms. But he's like, I'm not selling.
Yeah, this sounded familiar.
I'm selling them. I'm not even gonna have like $10 to eat dinner.
Right.
So I think it was educational. And that the video wasn't like, oh, it was easy, it was fine. Like, no, it was shit, and it was like, I can't imagine doing this for even a week.
Yeah.
Like, and my mental health, like my mental health is draining, like even with 2 days.
Yeah.
Of this. And the way people look at you and whatever. So like, yeah, I'm never going to like go at or I'm going to like, get out of my face. I'm not doing that. Although I sometimes do that depending on my mood or how aggressive they're asking me. Like, no, man, I need the 5, man. Just give me the 5, please. I need the 5. I'm like, no, you gotta get out of my face. This guy wasn't like that. His shoes were already like, running through his shoes.
Sure.
Because these guys are walking a lot. They're walking everywhere. They're
Yeah.
walking miles and miles.
Name of the game.
And this guy's like, he's pretty scrappy. But anyway. He said, like, my nails,
Yeah.
He was asking me if I was queer. Like, and he kind of said, like, the only good people are actually straight people.
That's a weird thing to say.
Not so weird to me, actually. I sort of laughed and explained like why that could be, which was like, well, the people, if you're queer, you're probably traumatized, and people who are traumatized. This is a point that I think a different YouTuber made.
That's a fair. Yeah, I see where you're going.
This is what some communist made, which was maybe it was no, I forget who made it now, but it's sticking with me, which was that people who have been traumatized have been, oh no, sorry, no, it wasn't from a leftist. It was from one of the Star Wars people talking about Andor. That people have been traumatized in their past. It's in a place of disorder, like the cause of it's chaos that created their trauma. It's being in a chaotic environment, a bad home, a broken home, and so subconsciously or not, they're actually seeking order. They're more likely to have authoritarian attitudes and tendencies. And this explains to me, or at least it's a hypothesis, about cancel culture and the left who act in an authoritarian manner, even if they don't really have power themselves. But at least within their own spaces, they're about policing it and controlling it and putting up boundaries. I mean, it's just so untenable when it's online. But in person, I've met enough anarchists who are actually quite control freaks and are not actually good at working with others, and they're not good at and they let their trauma and the problem and issues dictate how they treat and deal with other people. And I always found it sort of like it's a big contradiction. Anarchists who act like autocrats in their own personal lives, and they think that's okay. And they justify it by that they're always acting on principle. At least that's how I'm seeing it over the years. Not that I've done a full study. I'm not recording everything. Bits of data, anecdotes that make up data.
Yeah, no, that does sound plausible. That's an interesting theory.
Because
Don't see that.
Because I'm like the least traumatized, like in certain circles, and I'm also like, okay, this is just an observation from this year. Everyone who's been helping with my campaign is someone who is more like me, a cis, het, white, male with some education. One guy was educated later, so he was like a type of that's like, I don't need no education. And so he worked blue collar for a few years and then realized, oh no, I actually should go to community college. This really sucks. So now he's actually working as a teacher, like yourself. But his wife works for the assembly, and she's organized fundraisers and stuff. So she was going to do my event planning. I'll wrap things up with them soon. And they've been doing monthly brunches as a means of social support for everyone going crazy because of Trump Part 2. But otherwise, like my campaign manager and the other people who went out canvassing with me, they were more like me as far as education level and class position and whatever. And I'm like, not that I can't stay as associates and comrades with various mutual aid people, but like I'm less interested in working with them well, maybe it's more like because I've been trying to build something with them, or at least looking for opportunities, but none have arisen. They're all too busy doing self-care, or they need to focus on themselves. They need to focus on their basic needs and surviving. And it's sort of interesting. This it was a Vosh clip because of work. And the Vosh clips come up now, but none that make me angry. In fact, you could say he's getting more chill this year.
Oh, really?
But again, it's a smattering, you know.
Sure.
These are edited clips, and that's what was like. Oh my god, he was chiding. I think, oh yeah, he was complaining about like people who were just not like. Oh yeah, he was chiding a commenter for saying, well, people aren't getting out into the streets and they're not like doing something right now, despite growing authoritarianism, because they're too busy paying their bills and surviving. And his retort was, do you think the people during the Russian Revolution were too, like, their material circumstances were better than ours and that they had time to organize and create the Soviets?
I mean, actually, yeah, it was very much led by, students. So there was the people that had the time, right?
The Soviets were not just students. I'm sure there was.
I thought that was the main organizers, though.
Maybe so, but the Soviets were like worker unions doing workplace democracy. You know what? I suppose I need to read an actual book on how things were actually done. It seems like you had a good 2 decades of like communists, like Lenin. Well, not Lenin, he was out of the country. But when he's talking about the people who were on the ground doing the work, doing organizing, they were just flyering people.
Yeah.
They were
I
doing.
mean, you could be right.
At least the depictions I've seen. Clearly not the real history.
I mean, my impression was that a big problem with the revolution was that the people didn't know a lot about rural areas. They were used to city life. They were used to intellectual life, so they didn't really. They kind of feared the outlands and.
Well, maybe not. I don't know if fear is the right word, but it's just like, well, we don't have our organization isn't there yet.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we need to spend 20 years developing class consciousness out there before we can start communalizing anything or nationalizing. That's what the new economic plan was about. It's like we're still going to use markets and prices and all that stuff.
But I mean, you could be right too. Like the rank and file, not necessarily the leaders. They probably were, worker Soviets, but I think they were also then pushed just out of exhaustion from being forced to fight in World War One.
So as I was saying before the stream, it's maybe fortunate or unfortunate that I'm reading Lenin's Left-Wing Communism and Infantile Disorder.
Yeah.
And so I'm not through all of it, but I'm just getting to the point about like, but the main article is like, just don't do your politics based on principles. Like, have reasons why you compromise, of course.
Yeah.
But like, there's necessary compromise.
So, interfacing with reality takes a little compromise.
So he's explaining like the left-wing communists that he's deriding are like the communists in Germany who don't want to do any party politics, parliamentarianism, or even organizing with trade unions. Because some trade unions are reactionary, maybe all of them are. And so he asked the question, like, should we be organizing in reactionary trade unions? And the answer is yes, because there's potential.
Yeah.
And same goes for parliamentarism, where it's like, look, in 1905, we did it, and there was a reason to do it. But then 3 years later, the situation changed, so it was worth doing it to have communist Bolsheviks run for the Duma seats and be deputies. Now they were all eventually sent to Siberia but they were heroes for the cause because they were doing good along the way. They helped get other Bolsheviks out of jail or something like that.
Sure.
And it creates some legitimacy. You can teach others how to govern. And that's sort of where it's like the big issue with the current moment with Trump is we don't do these protests unless we're willing to change the government, and nobody is able to make a new government. Certainly not the Dems. They're part of this government. Yeah. They're part of this
pretty
government.
Comfortable being part
of this.
So
there's no alternative still. We can, and just saying that there is another world is possible is saying it's possible, not that it's able to happen tomorrow. Now, challenges are to get some governing experience, you need to get in the office. And there's all those challenges, and you may take a term or two to even get in. And then maybe once you're in, you're only in for another term before you get kicked out, or it takes too much effort, or your successes are not like strong enough to capitalize on your electoral success.
Sure.
And not able to do a lot because you're just a low-level legislator. But sort of like how Stalin was put in a position where it's like it didn't seem like it was important at the time, but he was able to do a lot with it. A legislator should be able to figure out how to do a lot with it. Just doing in my comments and my theory juices, because not that I really need to reassess my strategy, but I'm always like reassessing, like, because the people who are working with me are constantly asking this question of me, like, is what we're doing worth it? It doesn't, like, it seems it's so slow, it's so huge. Canvassing this neighborhood, going out there, like I put in like 60 hours overall. It was like 18 outings. Each outing was 2 hours. A few were one, but and for what, 100 interactions. We've got a short list of maybe 50 people who are like the 3 and 4 out of 5 interactions.
Mhm.
And those are people that we can follow up with if they still live there in a few years.
Yeah.
But these are people that are like pro co-op. So, related, I went to my DSA chapter's General Assembly, where they were electing the new officers and electing the delegates to the convention. And I sort of saw, like, as they were laying things out with their committees for the second time, first time was like a meeting a few months ago. I could see now that, like, they do have a strategy, which is step one. And in each step is like a year. It takes a whole year to do each step. Step one, we canvass for just cause eviction in a city. And we're just canvassing for this this reform. It's a very reformist reform, because just cause eviction just slows down the rate of evictions.
So you have to have a legitimate cause to evict. That's the
Right.
idea.
But granted, depending on how leases are, written, and sometimes leases, like the lease we had, is so bare bones, but it's just the agreement of, like, will you pay rent, and we're not going to put too many rules in place. There's no deposit. But if someone's broke or down and out or economically distressed, as they put it,
Mhm.
then they can't pay and the lease is broken and they still break the lease. So there is a cause to evict. It means it takes longer and you wait another few months.
Mhm.
Now this sucks if you're actually like trying to make a profit. All right, we're doing that, but just fucking just breaking costs. Housing is not free. Not free. Not free. Even if there's no taxes, even if it's like unless it's off grid. Housing's only free if it's off grid.
Mm.
And I don't know where people think the surplus value is going to come from to pay for a right to housing. Unless we have to expropriate all the means of production to do that. But people who say we want a right to housing and we want it now,
Yeah, it's definitely
they're
not
also
gonna
not
happen all at once.
socialists, or they're not like, well, we need to be building socialism at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just frustrated that like everything can't happen all at once.
No, it definitely can't.
But in this case, the DSA does the just cause eviction. But in doing that, they find the people, the tenants, who are good to organize. So then they have a list of people to do tenant organizing. So the step 2 is organized tenant associations and tenant unions. Now, I haven't seen the full, I don't know if they have a full diagram, but I assume step 3 is, well, rather rinse and repeat. We keep doing this until we have enough tenant associations where then we have a political base. And then we have the base to build socialism. Right? And then we can argue about how we're doing that, but we need the base first. And so I really I can get behind how the DSA chapter in my area is doing that, because otherwise electorally, they're like, it was brought up among the delegates, and basically 60% of them are for what I would call a slow break, meaning they do not want to be associated or connected with the Democrats whatsoever, but we do not have the base yet to do our own electioneering. And I agree with this.
Yeah, that's a fair strategy.
Like, rather than waiting, and I guess that's the main criticism of the Greens. Like, what are you doing electioneering when you don't have a base?
Right.
But I'm like, well,
that's why I was kind of.
We need to exist for when we do have a base.
Yeah,
But I guess the assumption is we build the base and then we form this new left labor party.
I think it's got to happen all at the same time. You have to have something besides elections to organize around, whether it's just doing food not bombs or leafleting or anything to get people in the routine of being together, start collecting dues, that sort of thing. And you also do the election stuff.
But I want to point out, and this is like just that it's not a criticism of mutual aid in and of itself. I'm criticizing mutual aid as a strategy for base building.
Okay.
I've not seen any base building out of mutual aid.
Really?
I'm not seeing it. Unless we're looking at it as a way of socialists to find each other. So perhaps we wouldn't have the BSA chapter we have without the mutual aid stuff. So maybe I'm convincing myself that's what it's for.
It doesn't just have to be
the comrades I've met through mutual aid and Food Not Bombs.
Sure.
But I guess at this point, this development that now we have orgs that can actually do real base building. The mutual aid is now irrelevant to me.
I see what you're saying.
But it's also irrelevant because I have an income over 30 grand. I mean, it's not much above 30 grand. I'm still under median income, but I'm above poverty line. So I'm not going to draw from mutual aid. And if I'm there, it's only as a volunteer. But then it's just sucking up my time because I'm not base building.
But yeah.
And I know everyone there already who's radical. So it's just like there's nothing for me to do then.
Yeah. I think at some point if you get a base of mutual aid, it's gotta kind of upgrade to something.
Yeah. You sort of I guess
community center, something.
I'm trying to rationalize through by saying mutual aid's not the shit anymore for my guilt of like not being involved. Yeah. By saying I don't need to be involved anymore.
Well, maybe you don't. Maybe.
Yeah, and I haven't been for a while, really. Although I kept showing up to help with the free store. But finally, they hit on them that they don't have to put all the clothes out at once. So now you don't need 10 people to pack up the free store. You only need like 3. But interestingly enough, that's how things were working over the winter. I think it was just that you had like 2 months where it's like, oh, we need all hands on deck. I'm like, well, this is bullshit. Why is all this out? We don't need all this out. But it was also a matter of just like the people me and my mom are evicting are regulars, and I don't want to fucking see them. And I'm sure they're telling everybody, oh, Dan Fly is evicting me. He's uncool. So, and rather than have to defend or like, I don't need to fucking defend myself. If people are like, well, that doesn't sound like Dan, there must be more to it than this. Or, well, you're saying something that's true, but that's the only thing you can say. Because if you say anything else, you're going to give away that, oh, you made an agreement and you broke in almost every way possible. That's more uncool to me. And why? What's the mutual aid and Food Not Bombs, like the radical point of it is that there's no strings. There's no agreement that needs to be made between parties.
Yeah. It's just
the only social contract. I suppose the only agreement is you're not there to be disruptive. And if you're told to leave, you're going to leave.
Yeah.
It's too bad that can't apply to apartments. And when you're told to leave, no, I have a right to housing. I'm not leaving. Even if I've broken any other agreement, like I'm going to pay something and I'm going to ask I'm going to ask to have other people stay there and so on. We'll see how things shake out. It's only a few more weeks, but it's the concerning thing is that it doesn't look like they're actually moving. They're moving apartments, but they're not moving up the building. But I think it's just more of a stalling because everyone has to move out of the building soon anyway. It's all based on the selling of the building to the land trust. So it's like, are you really sabotaging the demodifying of the housing for your sake? I guess you have to, to not be on the streets, but fuck, you've been in that position before for very probably similar reasons as now. And the fact that it's like it wasn't just bad luck. This keeps happening to you.
Yeah.
But I guess you could say that to anyone who's down and out. It's like, well, why didn't you pick yourself up by your bootstraps this time? Even after all these people helped you. But that's the thing. It wasn't just your own bootstraps. You were given a lot of bootstraps from others.
Sure.
This apartment was my form of that, actually. It's like, it's cheap, no deposit, and we're going to basically pay for your electricity. Which is just fucking icing on the cake. That just like, that's going to be cool. She's not telling anyone about that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an unfortunate situation, for sure. Place sounds like a headache. You'd probably be glad to get rid of it.
Well, insult to injury is that since it was brought up in the court proceedings, we don't have a certificate of occupancy in the city.
Oh,
It left after my dad died.
I see.
Because my mom doesn't know what the fuck she's doing, so she didn't have an inspection. And my dad never fucking taught her or told her about any of that before he died.
I see.
So, big fuck. So it didn't last for too long. It lasted like in 22 or 23. And so there's late fees, but she's getting the inspection done this month before they move out, basically, before the eviction served. Maybe just as like due diligence, but also because during the court proceeding, she was threatening to sue because it was one of her argument that like, well, there's no RFP for the apartment. So why should I pay rent for it?
I mean, that seems like a
It's
losing
just like-
gambit on her part, though, because
So you're saying
you're going to end up getting condemned?
The anarchist wants landlords to follow. Like, this is the thing. Like, I guess, like, yeah, you're assuming capitalists need to follow all the rules, right? But
Right.
you, the working class person, should not follow any rules.
Yeah.
And
But, like,
I guess
also-
that's fair to say, like, yeah, we shouldn't be able to follow the rules. We're the oppressed class. But it's just like in this case, it's like, well, that's the thing. You can do all the camaraderie things and mutual aid all you want. When it comes down to it, me and my mom are more middle class than they are. And class dynamics are still in play.
Yeah.
And that's thicker than blood or solidarity. In fact, this experience makes me very cynical about that word. There's only solidarity within a class. And I think maybe like one class is, me and you, others I know, the people helping me, we can be the vanguard, and then there's the class that's like gonna do all the mutual aid and be a base and be organizable. And I think any kind of Maoist line or not a Maoist line, but whatever line it is that like the revolutionary subject must organize itself. And any kind of more educated people who own some property, but just like a little bit, need to like follow them or get out of the way, or just be supportive. Like we literally are surplus. Like we don't go on vacations; we just give it to workers. And I guess that you get into sort of like it's like blood tread, like what was it then? A metaphor for like where you just for the ethical dilemma where it's like if you truly want to be ethical and you give all like any of your surplus to charity, you give it like everything you make. You also live at a subsistence level.
Yeah, like a
Even though you
citizen,
work,
basically.
but living at a subsistence level also impedes your ability to earn income. So, as any working or down and out person can attest, they can't generate a lot of income because their position and health are not in a good place. So it's not simple. Anyway, I enjoy talking this out.
Yeah, for sure.
With like-minded comrades.
Happy
Some
to be
comrades,
an ear because
Yeah.
I do feel for you. At some point,
I'm trying to relate it to larger organizing and political questions.
but I mean, at some point, the people defending that sort of behavior, if they're not stepping up to provide any alternative support, well then, I mean, they're just talk at that point. They're just standing on principle. Um,
Right. Or
so,
it's like, well, let's say there's not just talking about a single person now, but like let's say the down and out class.
yeah,
You everyone can chip in. Like we could collect our resources and build some socialism that will eventually like aid the down and out, or we can just keep giving money to the down and
yeah.
out. Like one $5 bill at a time. There's always a bit of conflict there, but I suppose for my own sanity, like I'll be interacting with the down and out all the time, no matter what.
Mhm.
And I'll throw some bucks. Always like what I do. My tactic is I basically like if I have singles in my wallet, I'll take one out and I'll put it in my like pocket, so that if anyone accosts me, I can say here's a month. But it's like if you ask for more, you're not getting it. I was ready.
You gotta spread it around too, right?
It's a matter of that as well. Though it's rare for me to be like busted um, twice in the same day.
That's stuff. I
Um,
mean, I hardly ever carry cash myself, but
well, I only carry enough. Like, well, my tactics to avoid certain types of fraud is to only use my debit card for like at large institutions, or online purchases via PayPal, but like Steam, eBay,
sure.
Businesses with Stripe, or I go to the bank and just take out like less than $100 of cash for to spend over a month, or usually it lasts longer than that, depending on what I'm doing. But basically, any kind of smaller business or farmers market or fair, I'll be paying in cash. Because there's all kinds of scams and fraud happening. Like I just got a fraud alert and I just had to get my debit card replaced. Now it only took 2 days between the fraud alert because it was a potential like fraud alert and I could just say no and then they just freeze the card.
Yeah.
But then with my housemate, he used a bodega ATM. At least that's his hypothesis. Because then his card's being used, the card info is being used at this and two other bodegas for like $60 each, and like it's hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
That are then charged to his card, so it's on the record, and so it needs to be cleared, but that takes much longer. And because these charges, because of his precarious income, put him in the negative, it means his account's frozen.
Oh,
So
that
even
sucks.
though he should be having paychecks coming in, he still can't pay me back anymore.
That's.
But with the campaign done, I immediately needed busy work. So I've been sorting his hoard in preparation for him moving out and make life a bit easier for him that way. Even if it probably won't last, because there's the key to being like non-cluttered is, and knowing all your stuff, is to have places for things to go, and that when you use it, you take it out for the day or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
You put it back at the end of the day when you get home. But if you come home exhausted, you just drop things and you don't put anything back. And so it's like, well, where's that tape? Where's those gloves? Where's like the hat that I want to wear? Doesn't fucking know where anything is. And I've been sorting through his boxes, which include political lit and other types of things going back to 2014.
Nice.
Yeah.
Found anything interesting on that?
Yeah, I found some stuff. Some of it is lit I designed, and so
nice.
that I didn't keep myself, or it's like, well, I'm going to just take this and put it to the side. Or it's lit that I kind of recognized but didn't keep myself. Like, I didn't keep this one, but maybe I'll take one of his copies. because this is a guy who's like fired for a bunch of stuff. He worked for like Environmental Citizens Coalition, so he has like material from that. But here's a piece of advice. I don't know who's gonna hear it, but like he had like when you follow opportunities from certain like associates of yours, you need to be able to have an exit plan. And he doesn't have it. Like he got into being a roadie, a stagehand, and working his way. It's a long like years to get into to the union and to basically be one of the main guys who gets like a lot of calls. But in order to get there, he basically had to live like a freaking like in a precarious situation for years.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's only been a detriment to his health.
It's tough
Being
life.
a stagehand is tough work.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not work you should be doing for long. Actually, it should be like a 5-year limit on like how long you do this stuff.
For sure.
But you don't get anywhere in the business until you do it for 5 years. So his body is breaking, or it's also because he's like over 45 now, and he's like, I'm almost 50, and like it's just life sucks. But it's like 20 years ago, he was in law school, and he was gearing up for like being in nonprofit work, and being in nonprofit work meant he was working a lot of events, and then he worked as a stagehand for one of the such events, and it was a good paycheck. And he was like, well, this is a better paycheck than I've ever gotten from a nonprofit. Let's try to keep doing this. But it's like, well, you only get those in the summer. What are you doing in the winter? Well, I guess she's doing some nonprofit work or whatever, but it would never be enough. Or it's weird. It's like his income would be better than mine, but then he'd also be broke all the time.
Mhm.
Is it drugs? Is it alcoholism? A little bit. It's a little bit of everything. And being a disorganized guy. But it's not. Well, he was I met him because he was running campaigns. But then when I asked him to run mine, he was a total mess. And so I would stay friends and associates with him, let him crash. Because he's one of the types that when he makes an agreement, he does keep it. He does eventually pay you back. It just takes forever. That's an endorsement. But it just leads to questions of who the hell do I live with next when he does move. I do want to share this house. It's a big house. It's too much house for just one. But it's more like I want to organize this house into a co-op first, I guess. Then whoever joins is like a co-member and not just someone I'm renting to.
Yeah.
That's
some real buy-in.
There's someone who wants to be a partner in this with me.
Right, yeah.
And not just some like needs a place to crash, needs a place for a year or something, or until something else settles out. It's kind of frustrating because at this age, it's like the people who need stable housing in one place, they were already settled somewhere. They got a partner or something like that, and it's the people who are also single that are also like the messes and or precarious. And so I don't know.
Yeah.
I get full say.
That's tough, but I mean, yeah. Hopefully you find someone who's on board with the cause and in the right financial position. Yeah.
Yes, and not traumatized. I think that'll be the main thing.
Yeah.
Everyone I ever meet at these goddamn parties or whatever, it's like they got something like that. Been a problem with dating.
For sure. All right. Well, it is getting to be about that time. So yeah. So what's next for you? You're not doing the campaign anymore. Any other projects you have in the works that you want to?
Well, the party chapter. I put it aside, so I got to pick it back up. It was languishing. I mean, we were down to like just officers basically, and if we can just. Well, the idea is that we just go back to what we were doing in the winter, where we have a social event every other month, an educational event every other month. I do an orientation over the summer, for any Greens that want it or are interested, or anyone who's even new wants to get involved. There are some people who are helping me out with the campaign. There's a few people who are actually coming to some meetings and whatever, or interested. So just keep doing the meetings every month. Keep having something to actually plan and do, which are just simple social events, low cost, low input needed. And at least it gets like more 8 people show, activate, not act, just socializing it. As you say, step 1 is just being together, doing something, being together.
Yeah.
And then maybe we do that thing, we do some kind of mutual aid thing. And then we use that to find other people, like-minded people, and we base build. Now, of course, some of the people involved right now were because of like Stein campaign petitioning a whole year ago. And there was no one truly green recruitable from my campaigning, except for the one green I was able to engage, also named Dan Henry. And he was gung-ho about being involved. He was very happy to meet me. Unfortunately, I didn't get his contact info because he literally had a minute and he had to be out the door.
Oh, jeez.
I was just happy enough that he answered, like he was able to come out for a minute and talk. But he was like, I have to go right back and now home. So I'm like, fuck, I really need this guy's info because if he doesn't email me,
Got to get it.
I don't get it. Now I know where he lives, so maybe I just go back and door
Yeah.
again with a clipboard. So a non-petitioner clipboard. So you know what? It is just something I just have to. There were a number of things from the campaign to follow up with. There are some people I meant to call during this month that I haven't because I gave myself the other busy work. Do that, and these are just more sociable calls. I was going to do a sociable, I made a commitment to go to the Central Avenue, Main Street drag, a business improvement district bid, and go to their meeting. It was in the middle of the day, 11:30. Though on the phone, I swear they said 10 p.m. 10. So I show up at 10. They say, "Oh no, it's not till 11:30."
Nobody's there. Oh shit.
I already took the morning off. Fuck you. I didn't say that, but I was like cursing, like I swear the guy said 10 on the phone. That's my note. I took it right when I called him. And then the clerk comes to the door. Thankfully, I guess the doorbell did work. And she says it's 11:30, and this meeting will be the last one in a while because they're moving to a quarterly schedule.
Oh,
Like we're not even meeting monthly.
not even monthly.
The reason, well, maybe this doesn't surprise you, but a lot of community and nonprofit orgs who have boards that are volunteer, they have trouble meeting quorum. So it isn't just the Greens or some radical communists that maybe can't get more than 5 people to show up for a meeting. So do business improvement districts that have that have like a $200,000 budget.
Oh, jeez.
Or more. Can't fucking meet. Like they don't have enough to do. They don't show, like people just don't show up. And so it's like, well, let's do it quarterly. So they show up more. So at least we get quorum. And I'm like, and that was the problem that the public access board had for a while too. Which is just incredible to me.
That's crazy.
It's like if you volunteered for this, why not show up? Yeah. Not important enough? Because Central Ave business district is massive. Right? They have a big budget because it's like a percentage of the taxing base that's converted. And they're meant to beautify, they're meant to manage things and throw events. And they don't there's some landscape elements that they maintain, but there's a big question mark of what the fuck else they do. So there's a lot of negative feelings towards like their director and whatever. And I just wanted to go and meet them myself. I'm sure they're really friendly the first time you meet them, but then maybe you ask them, so what do you actually do here? And what have you doing lately? And this street looks like shit.
Yeah.
Can you put some money towards that? Do you have regular cleaners? Doesn't seem like it. It is a lot of territory to cover, sure. But fuck, You know, it's on my way to this meeting. I'm walking down the Central Ave because it's literally my house to the house, 4
Sure.
blocks. And then 1 out of every 5 storefront. Sorry. No, yeah, only 1 out of every 5 storefronts is occupied.
Oh, jeez. That's
And,
tough
and,
to keep a
and
business.
I think the mindset of the director and the people there are like, well, the problem is we don't have enough parking.
That's always the answer. Just need more parking. That's what our customers want. Is more
Well,
parking.
because they see themselves as competing with the mall and the strips, and the commerce strips out there, the strips. And I'm like, no.
They got to take
Well,
a
because
different.
all the neighborhoods around here are now immigrants and the working class.
Yeah,
So the most active blocks are like the Muslim block
sure.
with the 2 halal markets and the masjid, and
There you go.
they're up there. They
Encourage
actually
more of that stuff.
they finally got minarets on their building.
Awesome.
Yeah, it actually looks kind of swanky.
But that's the kind of thing you can't replicate at just a big corporate mall. So that seems to be a business advantage that they should be promoting. But
Promote the internationality of
exactly. Yeah, why not?
because that's what it really is. It's an international district. We got Ethiopian, we got an African market, we got all kinds. Unfortunately, some of the businesses like Taiwan Noodle, their awning looks like it needs to be replaced. I didn't realize just how shitty it looked
Yeah.
until I was actually looking. I was actively looking. Usually, I guess I'm doing the thing where I'm just looking at my goddamn feet walking down the street because it's also shitty, and it's like the metaphor from the Phantom Toll Booth, where to people like someone says I'm going where they're getting where they were going. They stop looking at the city, and eventually the city like fades. It gets worse and worse and worse looking, and then it turns invisible.
Sure.
Like it's like it's not even there.
Yeah.
Um,
Tune it out. Yeah. All right. Well, as always, pleasure to have you on. Do you want to get back into the 2-week groove of it, or are you gonna be?
I want to if you're game.
Yeah. We could get back to that every other week.
Video, not just do kind of a 2-hour banter.
But yeah, it's been a while, so it was good catching up and everything. So
Right.
for sure.
Maybe do some actual theory. Maybe we read the Lenin here.
Absolutely. That's one I've wanted to read. So yeah, for sure.
All right. Cool.
All right.
It's a date.
All right. See
Good
you in
night.
a couple of weeks then. Have a good one.
Peace.
There we go. All right. That was Dan from the Albany Greens. Always a pleasure to have him on the show. And that's going to do it for me tonight. Thanks to everyone who joined. Thanks to all of you watching this after the fact. Let's see. I'm probably going to do a Witcher stream some point. I don't even want to say a time because I have no idea. My schedule's pretty chaotic right at the moment, but hopefully we'll settle down pretty soon, and we'll get it out. So just keep your eyes peeled for another gaming stream. Otherwise, it'll be Dan in a couple weeks. I'm sure we'll get in another stream before that point. So anyway, thank you all. Have a good one. See ya.